Hey guys, Dr. Michael Tang here, physiotherapist. Welcome back to another video in my Jumping Higher series. This is going to be episode 2. And in this video, I'm really going over how I feel in terms of my training progress, how the training's been, rest-wise, results-wise, all the little fine details. It's kind of more of an update video than anything. But without further ado, let's get into it. So one of the exercises as a primary staple in my program is power cleans, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. The basic idea of this is to grab a weight off the floor and pop it up onto your shoulders as fast as you can. Of course, you need to know what you're doing, but I did practice a little bit of this in my formative years, so I kind of know what I'm doing. Since I don't do this particular exercise a lot, it kind of requires that I take a long break in between, which is kind of what I'm showing here, right? Making sure I'm all set up and everything. And that's kind of the distinction that I want to make, because sometimes you'll see people doing this in CrossFit, and since I'm specifically training for vertical jump, I want to make sure that I'm doing this exercise as explosively as possible, which means each rep needs to be close to 100%. And then the other exercise, jump squats, here is a lot easier to perform, and it makes more sense, right? I'm literally having weight on my back and I'm jumping as high as I can. The little caveat here is when I'm landing, I'm trying to make it as smooth as I can. It's not the easiest to hear or see, but that's really what I'm focusing on. And just like the power cleans, I also have to take a long break. You see me just kind of swing it around here because I'm trying to decompress my spine. And also I just kind of like how it feels, quite honestly. Sometimes when I see people do this exercise, people will load up the bar like super heavy. So for myself, I have 95 pounds on the bar, but I squat over 350. And 95 pounds is more than enough for what I need to do, which in this case, I'm trying to get speed because my strength is already there. I think that jump squats, as you can see, is pretty much the same thing as jumping, except I have weight. So you really don't need that much. People get a little too wild with it. And just like all the other exercises, I haven't done them in a long time, so I do require a good amount of rest in between each of the sets since I'm not conditioned for it. This is going to be another part of the training session, or sorry, a different day, and I'm doing the same thing. But since I was feeling a little bit more comfortable, my technique, I would say, is a little bit more solid, and also the rest periods I was taking was a little bit less. On top of that, I also increased the weight of what I'm cleaning, or power cleaning here. Since the exercises I'm doing in this particular workout is pretty much exactly the same as the earlier clips, I'm going to cut through it and not kind of go too much in detail with it. One of the things I also wanted to bring up, specifically with jump squats, is that when I'm coming down and landing with them, I'm trying to make it as quiet as possible. So I'm really focusing on the eccentric portion of the lift. That's something that's not emphasized enough when people are training for power, because everybody always wants the output, but a big part of staying safe and not getting injured when training for power is being able to control the weight. I know that even sounds kind of counterintuitive when you're doing power exercises, but really that's a big part of it, since I'm demanding a maximum amount of force, and if I can't control it, it's extremely easy to get injured. So I think it's easier to see from the rear view that when I jump and I land, I make sure I gather myself and make sure the landing is soft before I go for the next jump to make sure I'm safe, just like I was saying before. And then here I'm doing some Bulgarian single leg squats. This exercise is probably my most favorite exercise, as well as the most hated exercise. It's my favorite because I get a ton of gains from it. Like, it's the most obvious when I go running or jumping or whatever. And it's most hated because it hurts like no other. It hurts more than all of the squats or deadlifts or any of the jumping stuff. I think a good amount of people don't spend enough time doing single leg work. And if there's anything that you want to do that will make you sore, this is it right here. I'm really kind of building up to my working weight, which is why I'm doing so little reps, of like 2 or 3. And that's really to prime myself and get me ready for the heavier weights without really giving me a ton of exhaustion. In this exercise, you see me kind of leaning forward a little bit, and I have some debates with some other people on like what's the correct way to do this. Ultimately, I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, whether your trunk is a little bit forward like I have it here, or if it's a little bit more upright. And the reason for that is depending on where your trunk is, the exercise changes. So the bias in my case, or right now, more of the bias is on the quads and the hams, whereas if I'm a little bit more upright, the bias will be more towards the glutes. And a good amount of how that is affected is how far away my foot is from the bench. Here, the distance is about medium for me, and it's hard to explain what medium means, but really I feel the most comfortable in this particular position. So here, it's really the last few reps that I'm doing, and it's quite the struggle for me. I try my hardest to not break form, and you also see my neck kind of flex forward pretty heavily. I would recommend it, but it's the last few reps, and I'm pushing as much as I got. And here I'm finishing up with some single leg extensions using blood flow restriction. So those blue cuff things or those blue band things that you see on me, that's what that is there. People will ask me, why am I doing the blood flow restriction? The short answer to that is that you can get the same hypertrophic effects of using a heavier weight using blood flow restriction. The hormonal response from what you get doing this is very similar, if not the same, as if you were using a heavier weight. The biggest reason why I'm doing it is just because of all the exercise I was doing before. I felt like I was very taxed in terms of my central nervous system, so I wanted to do something that's a little bit easier, not only on my joints and my musculature, on my joints, but rather on my mind. Don't get it twisted though. This blood flow restriction is incredibly intense, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, despite what it might look like. So when it comes to my meals, it's not fancy at all. We got some fish, rice and veggies. There's some beans in there too. And then I have some sauce sitting on top, which is going to be the barbecue sauce. We got scrambled eggs and some hot sauce to give it some flavor. That's adobo on the bottom there. And then we got my smoothie, my green smoothie, which has all my veggies and fruits in there. I'm not too big a fan of eating my vegetables, so I'd rather just blend it all up and drink it all at once. So this is another typical meal that I eat. Got some chicken, rice, and veggies. Got the barbecue sauce on top. And then we have some tater tots. I know it's not the healthiest thing to eat, but, got to get the calories in. And then some good old water.